What is going on, everybody? Good late afternoon or early evening for some of you. And the Seahawks have taken the opportunity this Saturday, this very Saturday before kickoff, the day before game day, to do some pretty serious shuffling on their roster. And they've done a lot to actually inform us about what kind of team we're going to have for these last couple games, plus maybe postseason. So. Quite a few things have gone down over the last few hours, and this tweet from Curtis Crabtree basically sums it all up. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at it. But this has obviously been aggregated from a couple hours worth of tweets from all kinds of Seahawks beat reporters and Adam Schefter. So this is kind of a quick summation of everything that's gone down today with this Seahawks roster. So let's go through it step by step. A lot of you guys probably already know about most of this stuff, but let's take a look at what the Seahawks roster looks like now compared to yesterday or earlier today. So let's start with the big ones. Let's start with the ones that are really impactful. First of all, we've placed two players on injured reserve, which ends their regular season and will probably end their season period. Jamal Adams and Eskridge have both been placed on injured reserve, which means they are both, I believe, eligible to return for the conference championship game. But the Seahawks actually would have to make it. So injured reserve means you're out 4 games, and then after 4 games, the team can bring the player back if they're ready to be brought back. So that would be 2 more regular season games for both of these guys, and then 2 playoff games, and then they could come back for the third playoff game in theory. So odds are very high that that's the end of the road. Neither guy is going to be able to play at all this season. It's tough to imagine the Seahawks, as much as things are starting to look a little bit better now, winning multiple playoff games. And even if they did, there's no guarantee these guys would actually be ready to go after those 2 playoff games. So Jamal Adams, I mean, he didn't have a terrible year, I want to stress that, but it obviously was a frustrating year. It definitely wasn't a very good year. It was a very flawed year. And at the end of the day, he was slipping at the end there. He had probably his 2 worst games of the season in the last 2 games that he played. So it's very easy to, as a fan, kind of dismiss this loss as not really being a loss of anything valuable. And while I do know there are some Jamal Adams defenders out there, and I've been a passive one, at this point, this can't really be looked at as something that has some massive impact on this team and on this defense going forward. So Jamal Adams, done for the rest of the regular season and probably the season period. This opens the door to have some difficult conversations, although honestly, I don't think they should be that difficult now about what to do this offseason. There are significant savings if you waive him with a post June 1st designation, and there are still savings if you waive him with a pre June 1st designation, or cut him, or release him, or whatever terminology you want to use. Point is, I think it's time. Like, this guy has missed, I think, more games than well, not quite, but over the last 3 years, he's played in almost as many games as he's missed, I believe. I think it's very close. It's just not cutting it anymore. And on top of the fact that he's such a, I'm going to say, flawed player when he's out there. I'm not going to say he's a bad player. I don't believe that. He's a flawed player. It's just time to do something different. And we as a team, the Seattle Seahawks as a team right now seem unwilling to utilize him in the ways that he needs to be utilized to have the maximum success. So I think that at this point, it needs to be done. Jamal Adams needs to have played his final game as a Seahawk as of a couple weeks ago. Eskridge, people have been theorizing for a while now that Eskridge is not actually that injured, but is just being put on ice so he can be released easily after the season. And I don't know if that's still the case or not. That's just a fan theory, of course, and we'll never be able to confirm it. But this obviously, in all likelihood, ends his season. He was lingering on the injury report for weeks and weeks and weeks with this rib injury. And There is some stuff he can do. Like, I understand to a certain extent this team's desire to keep him around because he is fast, because he is talented, because he does have these skills, but none of these skills that he has really matter when he can't even get on the field. And when he does get on the field, he's liable to just break again as soon as he gets out there. So Eskridge can't do it. Can't do it anymore. Can't have it. So I don't really have too much else to say about it. This is another player who needs to have played his last game as a Seahawk. Releasing him this offseason frees up almost $1.5 million in cap space. I would rather have $1.5 million than D. Eskridge. I just would. Maybe if D. Eskridge was guaranteed to play every game, I would be like, okay, he can add some value as a kick returner, and he does some things as a receiver, the jet sweeps. Okay, that's worth $1.5 million. But he's not worth $1.5 million if all he does is sit on injured reserve. The third big move from the Seahawks this afternoon was they waived Frank Clark. So Frank Clark is now out there, and based on what he did here and what he did in Denver, I seriously doubt anybody's going to pick him up. But this is the only logical way for the Frank Clark saga to end because he had nothing left in the tank. His tank was empty. He had been here for several games. He had had many opportunities. He was not making any kind of an impact whatsoever. I had low expectations when we signed him because I knew he didn't have much left based on what I saw in Denver and just the fact that Kansas City was so willing to let him go. But even I was disappointed with how little Frank Clark had left. And you know what? He's had a lot of success in this league. I'm not knocking him. He did great things here. He did great things in Kansas City. He won some Super Bowls. He made a lot of money. He was a very impactful player for a while there. But when you're out of gas, you're out of gas. I know he's not that old, but age is just a number. Sometimes you play well into your late 30s and early 40s. Sometimes you're out of gas by your mid 30s. Depends on the person. So he's gone. I'm interested to see what we do to replace him, if anything. I know he didn't play that much lately, so it's not like we're replacing snaps. But does this mean Levi Bell gets the call up? Are we going to call up Levi Bell? Are we going to call up somebody like a Jacob Sykes and try him? I'm interested to see what we do to mitigate not having him on our roster at all. And whatever we do is probably going to be better than what Clark was giving us, just straight up. And no hate to Frank Clark. I believe that he tried. I believe that he's doing the best that he can. He's just out of fuel. Maybe he needs to be one of these players who takes a year off to let his body heal, like Al Woods did, and then he could come back and do something. But right now, no. Lesser news. There is some lesser news coming out of this day of roster churn. We did sign a couple players off the practice squad, which is notable because when you sign a player off the practice squad, they actually get a significant pay bump. Patrick O'Connell, linebacker, because Jordan Brooks was actually downgraded to out, which I fully expected. So we're basically already acknowledging we're not going to have Jordan Brooks. So we brought up Patrick O'Connell, which hopefully it doesn't come to that. But we need additional depth now because we're getting more Devin Bush, and that means Nick Bellore might be called on to do something, might mean John Radigan gets called on to do something. So we need Patrick O'Connell active and ready to go just in case. Safety Ty Okada gets called up because we've lost Jamal Adams for the rest of the season, so we need a little depth at safety because if somebody gets hurt at safety, you're looking at playing musical chairs with guys like Kobe Bryant. Jarek Reed's already out. You can't turn to him, so Ty Okada really might get out there on defense. And then you've got Jay Curhan getting signed off the practice squad, which is probably because of Jason Peters being out. And it's not hard to imagine Jay Curhan getting out there at some point because he can play tackle and guard. So if something happens to any one of our players on the right side of the offensive line, Curhan might get the call up and say, hey, you got to go in there and hold your own for a little bit. And I don't necessarily dread that. He's a limited player. He's a flawed player. But there are things that he can do, and he has proven capable of playing in this league before. Not really as a pass protector, but he can run block, and he's got some NFL experience, so I don't dread this. So those are the three guys we signed off the practice squad, so presumably they're going to be here for a little bit, which makes sense given the fact that we are dealing with longer-term injuries to a couple of guys here. Because, again, I don't think Brooks is going to come back next week either. I'm hoping he comes back for the playoffs. We also have two practice squad elevations. Austin Faolu, which I don't. This doesn't mean he's going to play, but it's going to be interesting to see if he does get his first action this year. I don't know what this says about our thoughts and opinions on Miles Adams if we're thinking about playing Austin Folu over Miles Adams, but with Mario Edwards being out for this game, this makes sense. You've also got cornerback Kelvin Joseph getting activated, probably for special team stuff, if I had to guess. I don't think we're activating him because we need a cornerback. Even if Witherspoon doesn't play, and it looks like he's going to play, but even if Witherspoon doesn't play, we've got cornerback depth that can get us through a game. All right, so that's it. But that was quite a bit to get through. Quite a bit going on with this Seahawks roster churn today. Some significant moves as well. Let me know what you think down below. We may have seen the final game of Jamal Adams in a Seahawks jersey. Final game of Eskridge in a Seahawks jersey. I think we can safely conclude that we have seen the last game of Frank Clark in a Seahawks jersey. And there's going to be a wide range of takes on that. But I think most people get what's going on here. All right, see you guys later. Go Hawks. Yeah, this is what the team might look like for these next few weeks.